To some, the title of this video will be seen as hyperbolic. I and many other people of color and queer folks don't see it that way due to our understanding of leftism with the intersectional lens. Leftism that isn't based in intersectionality is upholding white supremacy. It ignores the BIPOC contributions such as microaggression coined by Chester Pierce in 1970 to intersectionality from Kimberly William Crenshaw in 1989. So much of American leftism is based on the collective fight against systematic racism that Black, Indigenous, Latine, and others have been on the front lines of. Knowing who Angela Davis is, but not reading or applying her calls to be anti-racist is grifting at best. Before I go further, let's break down what the white leftist industrial complex looks like. The white leftist industrial complex consists of varying traits, behaviors, and dog whistles. Commonly, you'd see them feeling vindicated when pushing misinformation, attacking the very Black and queer people that correct their colonizer approach, having an inflated ego when discussing BIPOC issues, focusing more on appearing to be correct than actually having a true understanding, blindly pushing right-wing narratives in terms like woke scold and identity politics. It's more common than not for them to lack tangible connections with the communities they state to advocate for, usually only surrounding themselves with other white people, but some might have their token BIPOC that they weaponize against people of color. If I were to limit my description to a handful of words and phrases, I'd say arrogant, cognitive dissonance, insufficient contrition, argumentative, ruthless, and self-serving. This can make doing work with them very difficult with their consistent struggles with allyship, lacking proper etiquette in BIPOC-led spaces, wanting to be the loudest in the room. Surely in 2023, we should be able to expect so much more from our cis and white queer leftists. I and others are done entertaining their strawmans and moving forward spending our time on genuine leftist causes like combating Cop City, anti-trans bills, and the demonization of woke. I can keep this going all day, but let's get into this caucasity. Before I dive in, I need to define some terms and give some context for the foolishness you'll hear. Woke school, genderqueer, and identity politics, shortened to IDPOL, are dog whistles that they enjoy weaponizing against marginalized people. Woke school being an offshoot of woke used disingenuously by right-wingers. Like Erykah Badu said, it's just another way to say black or thug, let alone woke being AAVE. Genderqueer is a word that has different meanings person to person, but the way I see it used is equivalent to a queer version of woke school. Lastly, IDPOL, or better known as identity politics, is the most mask-off racist term used by these flock. The civil rights movement is identity politics. Fighting for the right for gay marriage in 2015 is identity politics. The fight for Roe v. Wade is identity politics. Black trans people fighting to combat the disgusting reality of our high murder rate is identity politics. We don't have to be class reductionists to expect change that lacks the intersection of race, gender, and sexual orientation.
Oh, this is gonna be great. You just got here, are we spreading misinfo? Yeah, I'm doing gay ops on genderqueers by encouraging my followers to make pic crew accounts and infiltrate genderqueer Twitter. Because once they catch wind of the plan that we're using pic crews to infiltrate genderqueer Twitter, they're going to all become incredibly suspicious of pic crews and they will eat each other alive. Does it matter which pic crew? No, just use a random one. But the more diverse, the better. Like, make it like a black butch lesbian with like, I don't know.
Now that we're caught up on terms, let's dive into this complex. Given our current events with all the anti-trans bills, and even Joe Biden failing trans people, I felt it was only right to first cover the white queer community. When I say the white queer community, I'm talking about a very specific group of white queer people. Typically, these are queer people who are in mostly white spaces and lack the interest of changing that. They may know of intersectionality, possibly sharing infographics about them. The problem lies with them not applying intersectionality to their leftism, assuming that being queer means they don't have to talk about their white privilege, taking an all lives matter approach to trans issues as they continue to not acknowledge black and brown trans people. They use the trans murder rate to advocate for themselves, while they ignore the fact that over 3/4 of trans murders are black trans people. Black trans people are already ignored by the media. We also have to overcome job discrimination, food insecurity, lack of housing, and overall, we're underserved. The overwhelming data has always been there, but the needed urgency still isn't there from cis and queer white people. We also notice the trans people of color they do embrace usually have to be cis-passing. Another hurdle is the weaponization of respectability politics against Black trans people, which is why it's still mostly Black trans people forced to advocate for ourselves. The fact that, as of right now, there's been 2 Black trans women murdered within the last 2 weeks. Yet the white trans community, along with the media, can't even muster a fraction of support or sense of urgency they give to our white counterparts. Have you ever thought of how many Black trans folks we wouldn't have to bury if we had a collective understanding of intersectionality? It can't be mainly white trans people being celebrated, embraced, financially supported, and having access to success. It shouldn't take 10 Black trans activists to equal out to 1 white trans public figure. Y'all aren't doing enough to uplift and empower us as the numbers show. There's much more I can say, but I'll save that for a future video. Having the context we need, let's jump into this queer caucasity. During Black History Month, 16-year-old Brianna Ghey was fatally stabbed by 2 other minors. Kayleen, a fellow trans creator, made a very powerful video on Brianna Ghey. This video gave the needed tone and the raw and real breakdown.
It's just grief like flayed and then displayed because I don't know how else to process. I don't know what else to do. Like, what are we supposed to say? What are we supposed to do? She was 16. She was 16, and for years she was being bullied and harassed. And then Brianna Ghey was stabbed to death by 2 other kids in broad daylight, a whole life gone. Maybe not a perfect one, but it was hers to live as she chose, or it should have been. I'm not going to make any claims about the motives of the killers. I'm not going to speculate on circumstances. Here are the facts. Every day, anti-trans narratives are being pushed by the media by disgusting anti-trans activists like J.K. Rowling, Graham Linehan, Kelly J. Keane, Matt Walsh, and organizations like LGBT Alliance or Libs of TikTok. Constant articles, videos, tweets, books, press conferences, news segments saying trans people are bad, trans people are dangerous, trans people are predators, they're sick, disgusting fetishists that exist only to harm women and children, an existential threat to humanity deserving of nothing but disdain and disgust, inhuman, expendable, worthless. Even in the coverage about Brianna being violently murdered, she's shown the maximum amount of disrespect and discrimination. The Times, shortly after their original article that referred to Brianna as a teenage girl, updated it to remove the references to her being a girl, changing teenage girl to transgender teenager, and adding in her dead name. Brianna's family released a statement.
Brianna was a much-loved daughter, granddaughter, and baby sister. She was a larger-than-life character who would leave a lasting impression on all that met her. Brianna was beautiful, witty, and hilarious. Brianna was strong, fearless, and one of a kind. The loss of her young life has left a massive hole in our family, and we know that the teachers and her friends who were involved in her life will feel the same.
Hashtag Say Your Name started trending due to mostly white queer people using it for Brianna Ghey. This phrase / hashtag was created by and for Black women who are victims of police violence like Sandra Bland and Breonna Taylor. We requested them to use other hashtags like Her Name is Brianna. Black people that spoke up were being harassed, dogpiled, and called psyops by the racist white trans community. The harassment escalated when our trans comrade Jessie Gender used her platform to speak up. Like the Avengers, racist white trans people came together to silence Jessie, who was merely showcasing her intersectionality. Jessie is the sweetest and most understanding person known to LeftTube. This is alarming to see so many from the queer community harass and uphold white supremacy in the name of what? White entitlement? It's a damn shame to have our most charitable comrades harassed out of their skin for standing up for Black women. This can't keep happening. We as a community need to reflect and learn from these queer clan rallies.
It's basically just using the aesthetics of a foreign culture such that you can present yourself as sort of like someone who's cultured and expert on a culture that you're like not a part of. It really does boil down to like the like economics of it all, simply because it's like, you know, I'm going to talk about Ariana Grande because she's one of the biggest examples of someone who profits off of or otherwise gains social capital through the aesthetics of ethnic people. And when it came to like the inciting incident for all of this like streamer drama on my end, not drama, but you know, harassment campaign, I didn't even say the words cultural appropriation. I didn't even say the words white supremacy. And a bunch of white people just kind of read into like what was, you know, a tweet that I posted at like 9 p.m. on a Sunday while stoned out of my face. And they added all of this outrage and they projected all of this outrage onto me that I didn't have. Cultural appropriation comes down to issue of economics, where it's who gets to profit off of these cultures and who does not. I'll start from like the very beginning. Back in August 2021, it was my nephew's birthday. We were in the second year of the pandemic. I was, you know, at my desk scrolling, and I was on urbanoutfitters.com. I saw this cookbook titled Dumplings and Noodles. It was about Asian like steamed buns and Asian noodles and all that. And I was like, oh, that's cool. It was like, oh, this is interesting. Like maybe I can get an idea from it. But then I saw the author's name, Pippa Middlehurst. That doesn't sound like an Asian woman. That sounds like a white lady from Britain. So in that context, I was just kind of like, not again. Like, why is this such a common occurrence where I'll try to look for something like about Asian food and it's like these white people kind of like presenting their expertise. So me being me, like I just kind of took a screenshot and like a screenshot of the author and put it on my Twitter and kind of laughed at it. And then I went to bed and I had a bunch of emails, like more than usual. And then there was one I remember that said, you're just jealous of white women because they're sexy. And I looked, and my why would a white woman write a cookbook about dumplings and noodles had got a lot of traction, and there were a lot of racist comments in the replies. This wasn't my first time like waking up to find that I'd been harassed out of my skin. Had I known that my tweet had made it onto 4chan, I probably wouldn't have said anything. I just would have ignored it. Eventually, there were people like just camped out on my Twitter feed, like replying to anything I replied to, harassing like my mutuals and my followers. And I was like, what the hell is going on? In the quote tweets, there were, you know, guys who were talking about like bringing a storm, talking about white genocide, this very like segregationist, like basically neo-Nazi stuff. And that was super concerning. I logged off, and the next day I woke up to the author of the cookbook kind of trying to clap back at me for what I wrote about her. As the harassment kept escalating, I got more and more upset. I locked down my account for about a week. Like, the harassment was that bad. I was still getting emails, I was getting like comments, Facebook writers page, I was getting nasty DMs. The discourse reached like Jesse Single Twitter, it reached John Kay, it reached Barry Weiss. I was on the Daily Mail because I apparently said it's racist to eat noodles, which I obviously didn't. Russia Today covered the whole thing. The Babylon Bee covered it. The who's who of the far right transphobe Twitter. Obviously, it reached the white streamer corner of Twitter, where Vaush had started circulating this meme that said Pippa Middlehurst was actually an Asian adoptee, and that's why she was publishing this cookbook. These people had to make up lies to kind of paint this picture that I was just some racist Asian woman, saying that white people couldn't do this, white people can't do that. There was a lot of projection on me. There was a lot of words being put in my mouth that I did not say and did not care to elaborate on.
It's very telling that the same white leftist that has a history of going after people of color joined the right-wing 4chan dogpile, pushing the same strawmans and reaches when Rosalind never said it was racist to make dumplings. It's the fact that they had to lie on Rosalind to find a justification of the harassment going on. 4chan literally made her cookbook a #1 bestseller in Asian cooking on Amazon.
Keffels wasn't as big at the time, but she had also piled on. So Keffels was like quote tweeted it at the end of everything, and I didn't know who she was. But about a year later, when I saw that Keffels had piled on to the original discourse, I was like, oh shit, like now I knew who she was by that point. And it was the first time I saw her tweet where she was just like, because noodles are tasty. I was just like, that's the whitest thing I've ever seen. Like, I can't believe this like purported white leftist who like ratios transphobes or whatever also added on to this like 4chan harassment campaign of me. Like, that's rich. So like I took a screenshot of it and I posted it simply with like the caption, quite interesting. And somehow, like a day later, Keffels found it, and she quote tweeted me, and the harassment campaign amped up again. In her same, like in the same thread where she quote tweets me, she's like, Rosalind is just doing this to like get attention because I have a much bigger account. Like, I don't see the problem with what I said. You know, and you're welcome. Rosalind is welcome to come on my stream and debate. You're setting me up and I'm not falling for it. And it was just like, she just proved my point in that entire, like, not exchange, but like in her quote tweet of me, she like weaponizes her white woman tears because she thinks I was trying to cancel her, even though I was just making a joke with my followers like I was with the original tweet. I was harassed, like I had COVID that weekend and I was just trying to get over COVID. But instead I had to deal with the mass harassment that she sent my way because she was the one who needed engagement. She was the one who needed to basically start this drama that I wasn't even intending to start. Like, showing my followers, like, look at this white bitch. This is ridiculous. And rather than just like leaving me alone, she relitigated that that harassment campaign. We've been dealing with these issues a decade, if not. Been a writer since like about 20. This wasn't the first time I've seen a white woman position herself as this expert on dumplings and noodles and trying to get all of this social capital and trying to build a platform on her so-called appreciation, quote unquote, Asian culture. It's not about, can white people do this? White people can't do that or else they're racist. It's, oh, we don't want to listen to the critiques of any marginalized person or any racialized person because it makes me feel bad. And you guys are questioning my moral integrity, and I don't like that. And I'm going to use all of the power that I have to silence.
Keffels also ran a blockchain on anyone that liked, retweeted, and commented on the harassment. This was the first wave when Black trans Twitter got blocked en masse, making her space more insular and white. Once again, another moment showing white queers upholding white supremacy and refusing to apply an intersectional lens. Rosalind was spot on when she said it's easier for white people to identify with a white woman making an Asian cookbook than people of color.
Like, the reason I love your idea about doing this video is because it's a group effort, because it illustrates like that pattern of what these white leftist streamers do and how they, you know, kind of weaponize their platform to just do racism on a daily basis for content. And it's like, if you like, especially with the white queers, it's really frustrating because white supremacy and queerphobia, transphobia especially, like, it's all like intertwined and they don't understand this. Like, everything's intertwined. And white queers who are doing this, like, you know, doing racism for engagement bait, they don't understand how they're also shooting themselves in the foot. There was a part of me that wanted to believe that, you know, self-proclaimed white leftists, like, understood what was happening and, like, what my issue was. But at the same time, it's like, this is what white people do. They're going to, you know, circle the wagons and protect their own and essentially protect themselves. I think because they are more, I think it's easier for them to identify with Pippa Middlehurst than it is to identify with, you know, people like us. You know, I think a lot, like, you know, even in like progressive circles, I think racism is still kind of like a taboo topic for them, and they're very much like head in the sand. You know, like, racism ended in the 90s kind of thing. Disappointing that despite everything that happened, like with the George Floyd protest, everything that happened with like hashtag Stop Asian Hate, like, they still could not fathom why I would be making fun of a white woman who wrote a book about Asian dumplings and noodles. All of these white people, and, you know, even some Asian people, were basically accusing me of attacking this innocent white woman who was just appreciating the culture. And It's like, y'all, like, these white people love this culture that we create. This culture, like, these ethnic foods, these, you know, what television shows and movies, they love the aesthetic. They love the products that we put out. But if it were up to them, they would rather be the ones who are kind of like gatekeeping these cultures and presenting them in a way that's palatable for their like white friends, for their white audiences. They want to be the ones gaining the social capital. And it's crazy because, you know, these white leftists are supposedly anti-capitalist, but they don't and they can't see the issue that I was like kind of pointing out with my very unserious tweet. At the end of the day, it is a very like ego-based reaction for them to be like, oh, so white people can't cook noodles? They're so quick to this like knee-jerk reaction, this like defensive reaction. It speaks volumes about their own principles and morals, where it's more important for them to, you know, get their jokes in. It's more important for them to defend their right to be Asian food enjoyers or Asian food appreciators or whatever. I think what bothers me the most is that this one, or maybe two if they're disabled, this like one marginalization means that they're like completely infallible to any critique. It means they think only white people can be queer, only white people can be disabled. Like I've seen so much of that on Twitter where it's like, how can I be racist? I'm literally queer. It shows like this fundamental misunderstanding of like intersectionality, where if you're marginalized, it like gives you a pass or something. It's like a sticker that says like, I'm perfect. I'm oppressed, therefore I'm perfect. It's like they're using it as like a badge to say, oh, I'm progressive. Like my marginalization means I'm progressive and I can't be racist, and it means I'm perfect. And it means that I'm the most important person in the room because I'm so marginalized. And like that, again, like it's like this white need, like this need to be the one voice in the room, or to be the voice in the room, or to be the most right. It fails to account for, you know, racialized people who are also queer, who are also disabled, who are otherwise marginalized in different ways. And a lot of it is like, so much of it feels like they're just trying to avoid any opportunity to do any self-reflection. If you understand that you're marginalized by your queerness, by your disability, you understand, like you have to understand that all of these oppressive systems are rooted in white supremacy. And if you're not willing to reckon with white supremacy, you're not actually for liberation. What you're for is assimilating into the power structure that keeps racialized people at the bottom.
The avoidance of reflecting on their whiteness within the queer community is one of the biggest issues in our community. It's shown a lot of times when they can't hide behind their queerness to trans people of color. That's when you'll start hearing identity politics, woke scold, and oppression Olympics. That's when they run blockchains on intersectional posts to maintain their narrative and pedestal they place themselves on. You can say a lot of white queers have a bad case of main character syndrome. While we're still here discussing the white queer community, I felt it was proper to end it off discussing this clip that I consider bad white queer literacy.
Yeah, the Hassan raid for a charity stream makes it like earn so much more money too. It's such a valuable gift.
Oh yeah, no, it was great. It sucks, like the response to the charity stream was actually like very negative, which was crazy to me. There was a lot of trans people who were trying to turn it into into a bad thing, which was like...
For what?
They were trying to say that it was entirely performative and I should have raised money to directly put into the PayPal accounts of Black trans women. I'm not joking, like this was an actual thing. I mean, people were mad about.
If you did go down that road, I can see a lot of people getting really mad and being like, well, are you accountable? Do you have the receipts? Did every single person get, like, you know, how much money? How did you decide who gets it and who doesn't? You know, not to mention, like, if you want to use Tiltify, I think is the name of it, for raising money.
Yeah, it's like I didn't have access to the money. And also, if I raised $200,000 on my own, and I would not only have to pay taxes, but I feel like they would be even more mad if I was like, hello, white trans woman here. It is time for me to decide which Black trans women are are worthy of this money I raised on your behalf. I am a savior of the Black trans community. No, they would hate me for that. They wouldn't like that. They don't want that.
In reality, Black trans women that are being murdered at staggering rates don't give a damn what some random white person on Twitter is saying. We lack funding and support, period. Many of us either don't have Twitter, let alone enough reach to be heard. This clip also showed me that Keffals isn't in community with Black trans folks, displaying how she cares more about how she appears than helping BIPOC trans people she states to be the CEO of.
White leftists are not our allies. They are not our accomplices. They are not for liberation. They are for their own profit and for building their own social capital and positioning themselves as the experts, as the this whole thing has just made me realize that like white people are not serious. The only thing they're serious about is this like individualist need to be visible, basically. To be the funniest in the room, to be the most, progressive in the room. It just kind of made me realize that this is just like a facade to them. This is just a game. They have no like actual stakes in the game. Like it's basically like, this is like, the idea of like liberation is not something that they're really thinking of. They're basically just treating this like as a sport or something like that. Once their feelings are hurt, once they get their feelings hurt, they will revert to their whiteness, like in the snap of a finger. And God forbid, I show a bit of vulnerability and show my emotions about everything. And when it comes to women of color pointing out anything that's wrong with the world, we're always angry, we're always hysterical, we're always irrational. And especially when it comes to making fun of white women, it's we've committed this this cardinal sin. Don't make fun of white women. You're gonna make us look bad. And it's I don't care.
What inspired this segment was me watching FD's video that had a segment on online figures cancellations. See Merrick go into depth about why she was previously cancelled while completely leaving out the biggest one. She constantly ran defense for her now racist ex-boyfriend SDL, and joined in on the dog pile on Professor Flowers and Cat Black. She also went after me for my first video essay that included her ex's racist statements. My video also breaks down her weak 13-15 arguments, and she ignores that arrests aren't convictions. She played up the white tears and expected me to delete my first video. At this time, I was a nobody with only 500 subs. What does it mean when black people get attacked and dogpiled for correcting white people's advocacy for us? Can you see how that can hinder a lot of work when we're stuck discussing one-on-ones with self-appointed allies? Yeah, it's me again. I felt the need to pop up to really and to understand the seriousness of the situation I'll be discussing next. I want to shut down the productive attitudes writing in all this drama, but these are real people's lives. It never should have escalated to the scale that it did. And honestly, that's really sad. The blatant trans misogyny is sad. The harassment, the dogpiling, and just all this coming from white leftists. That's sad. Please listen. This is a perspective we haven't been given, and understand these are real people's lives.
It's white people making these spaces unsafe for us. And that's not us being insular. It's them refusing to learn or understand or otherwise meaningfully engage with any anti-racist theory or any anti-racist praxis. Racism is very serious and it can be extreme. White people should treat it seriously, but they have this stereotypical idea of racism that for them, it's a very high bar to meet. you know? They don't see that calling any Black leftist a psyop. They don't understand why that's problematic because they only see the clan hoods as a valid form of racism. They're not dealing with like the root cause of these oppressions. And it's kind of like why we keep going in this like endless circle, because we have to keep explaining to white people that yes, white supremacy is actually at the root of everything. It's at the root of misogyny. It's at the root of queerphobia. It's at the root of transphobia. It's at the root of ableism. Sometimes it feels like white people are just like being dense on purpose. It's like their God-given right to be dense and to keep us trapped in this cycle of explaining to white people that white supremacy is at the root of everything. Like, the white arrogance makes them come into these conversations where they're like, I'm the most right person, and if you tell me otherwise, I'm just gonna harass you because you're racist. And, like, it's so, that arrogance means that they're not coming from a place of, like, wanting to learn and wanting to help and wanting to join the collective struggle. It's about wanting to feel like the most right person in the room. It's about their own personal grievances. But white people, they're coming into this brand new, but they're acting like they are the experts and they're the most right. And this whole debate culture, it exacerbates that problem 100%, because they have this like following, to have this fan base of people who hang on to your every word. They're not coming to this with an open mind. They're coming to this with okay, I'm here now, let's fix it.
Kat Blaque, a Black trans content creator, is one of the pioneers of trans YouTube. I've been following Kat Blaque since I was a freshman in high school. In 2016 to 2018, she was targeted in a harassment campaign by the alt-right pipeline. Numerous bad faith videos were made that didn't engage at all with what Kat Blaque was saying in her videos. Last year's Women's History Month, she was intensely harassed by white leftists. Kat made the mistake of asking her community a very simple question. Without naming names, she asked her community that's largely trans if ironic misogyny is helpful to trans liberation. This led to Ian, aka Vaush, who made the ironic misogyny joke against J.K. Rowling, to jump into Kat's DMs. In that exchange, Vaush not only was a massive dick, but he also displayed an explosive amount of arrogance that only a cis white man would confidently display. Everything escalated fast once Vaush in his glory misrepresented his conversation with Kat, starting a wave of harassment that would only get worse with each day. In her attempt to shut down Vaush's lies and low digs, she rightfully released the DMs that showed how unhinged and self-important Ian is. At this point, Ian decided to escalate the situation even further, taking it to stream to weaponize his live audience. ContraPoints, who's one of the biggest video essayists in LeftTube, also fell victim to Vaush's stream. ContraPoints simply speaking up on his bad faith attacks led him to slick his fans on her. All this because two trans women told him that ironic misogyny isn't helpful to trans people. Many of the debate bros from Twitch and the racist queer community joined in on the dogpiling of Kat Blaque. Hunter Avalon being one of them who came with the biggest reach against Kat Blaque in his quest to gain clout. Hunter's first thought was to dig up an out-of-context tweet of Kat. It's very rich coming from him since he's supposedly a reformed white supremacist, let alone the fact that he made a very viral right-wing racist transphobic video on Kat that got hundreds of thousands of views. So to see him not only join in on the dog pile, but to do so with the dog whistle as id pull is very ironic. While we're on white leftists, I wanted to give Dreamleaf her Queer Clan Rally Award. Her outstanding continual racist attacks and misinformation on Kat Blaque takes a lot of commitment to constantly have cat in your mouth. Now let's hear Ian retell what happened from his perspective.
Well, I don't like the arguments a lot of people are using, you know? I'm okay with being criticized for the ironic misogyny, but a lot of people, I think, again, are doing that ceding ground to J.K. Rowling thing. So one of the people doing that was Kat Blaque on Twitter. I DM'd Kat Blaque saying that I disagreed with her and asked if she would be interested in hearing my explanation for my behavior. She, made comments about my penis unprompted, which, again, is very weird. Kat Blaque sexually harassed me. I'm really sorry. Just out of nowhere, talking about a person's dick because you sexted them before and you're having a public falling out with them, to stand by the side of that person when everything that I've done here, every element of this particular drama, has been escalated and instigated by other people. That's not an exaggeration. Yeah, Vaush is pretty much exactly what Kat states he's into. All right, are you guys ready for the mildest hot take in the universe? Okay? Super id pull, lefty black women who are like really condescending to white people in terms of their ability to engage in political discourse. Love fucking white dudes. It's the exact same reason that racist white guys all watch interracial porn to jerk off to. It's the exact same thing. It's identical. There's no difference. It's literally the exact same goddamn thing. It's true. I'm sorry, guys. People who have like racist thoughts tend to like weirdly fetishize like interracial race shit for like probably reasons they should be more critical of. Like, is this not exactly like all of the woke scolds who would reply to ContraPoints and say stuff like, are you done invalidating the voices of trans women who have been hurt by your content? It's such a shitty, presumptuous woke scold kind of behavior because you're presupposing, the more of you are in the replies being like, that's not what's happening right here. Like, this is necessary, okay? Publicly shame her into changing her mind on this. I just think it's funny how he's talking shit, so here we are, lol. She really is mentally a teenage girl. Don't they say trans people go through a second puberty when they transition? Oh my god, I didn't even see this. Wait, she's genuinely retarded. I'm so sorry. Do you guys remember the DMs that we shared?
As you saw, he did everything to escalate the situation. He starts by using anti-white, which at this point is more than a dog whistle. His fetish comments were pulled completely out of his rear, especially when you know that Kat has discussed race play for years. Kat is so open in her content about her experiences of black trans women being fetishized. I haven't even spoken on him going after ContraPoints for simply calling out his ego. Trans people's lived experiences will always hold more weight than what some arrogant cis white man has to offer. And don't waste your time with the Blair White and Candace Owen strawmans. You don't even realize you weaponize them against black people just as much as white supremacists. Now to these important next clips.
It's real bad. You guys saying that she leaked the sects, which by the way, I saw large content creators repeating the fact that she leaked the sects, which never happened. That did not ever happen. No sects were ever leaked by anyone. All that Kat Blaque ever did was say that the greatest extent that they ever engaged was to sext a few years ago. You guys have been spreading that lie all the fuck over the place. And honestly, that's fucking shit. Just fucking misinfo. And it is, I'm seeing it now, by the way, people perpetuating this. And this is how you start to build up a cancellation profile for someone who didn't even do the things you're accusing of them.
First of all, F you Shark for being another black man complicit in some racist transphobic bull against a black trans woman. You're really giving leftist Candace Owens vibes. You were so mask off with your bad faith attacks on Kat Blaque. Shark was the first content creator to push this misinformation that debate bros till this day still latch onto. The hordes of racist white queer people that ran with this to attempt to silence Kat, and anyone calling out the bold trans misogynoir. Shark gained a lot of clout and profited off of the attacks. Black trans people don't have to accept contradictory allyship from cis black men, throwing black trans people to the wolves that are debate bros. Kat wasn't the first or the last trans person he's gone after. The clout and access he gained after strategically going after Professor Flowers was the first time I sensed coon vibes from him. At the moment, he lacks any contrition for the hate he pushed. I don't have time to deal with Uncle Ruckus Jr. when my black and brown trans siblings are lacking resources, support, dying, and being murdered. There's a lesson from this that I want leftists and especially Cornburn Tube to understand. To have allyship with black trans folks is so much more than publicly stating your support. To be intersectional with us, you need to include us in your dialogue. You'll need to share your platforms to help push nuanced discussions. Learn what trans misogynoir is, which I discussed in my video Transphobia and Trans Misogynoir. Now back to this caucasity.
I will not move from my positions because I am right and confident in that rightness. And I have not, nor will I ever cede ground to bad arguments because they're being offered by people with different lived experiences than me. We will be mass banning people from my subreddit who take any position other than the correct one, which is mine. Also from my chat and from my Discord. There were a lot of people here in my community and chat who were defending Contra throughout all this, but Contra never actually posed an argument to me in public. What am I supposed to take from that? Don't you think the whole I'm right, you're wrong mentality encourages this kind of behavior? No, never cede into the abusers. They want you to think that being confident is what they have a problem with. They want you to believe, oh, things would be so much better if only you were weaker and more susceptible to peer pressure. I will never cede anything for the sake of optics with these fucking people, okay? Never in my life. I will tear this entire goddamn community to the ground before I cede even the slightest point for the sake of getting them off my back. I do not care. I will never care. I'm building my nest egg, all right? I'll do this shit for as long as I can. I will never in my life back off. And if more people were like me, the left would have won the online space years ago.
After watching that, aren't you eager to give him the most helpful trans ally award? If bad media literacy was clips, it would be these. Strictly only being in community with trans people that agree with you as this person says it all. This is exactly what creates insular spaces where white supremacy in the queer community can grow. He purged away the remaining intersectional trans people in a space and built walls like the arrogant entitled white boy he is. To be this explosive over being corrected is what BIPOC leftists fear in shared spaces.
The cognitive dissonance is white supremacy, like, let's be real. But that weird cognitive dissonance, like, it was a bit surprising. You know, like, and this is my real life, you know, like, these are my, like, lived experiences. Whereas these, like, white leftists are just, like, they're just doing discourse. They're just shitposting. They're just trying to get content for their streams or whatever. And they're trying to do this, like, reactionary grifting like a lot of people on the right do. Like, I very, like, the fact that so many white leftists also had the same reaction as so many right-wing douchebags kind of speaks volumes, you know? Like, even white people who are, like, marginalized by class or by disability or by sexuality, they still had the same reactions as, like, Jesse Singal. And what does that say about whiteness? What does that say about so-called white progressives?
This final mask-off conversation I'll show you is of Ian talking to Andrewism. It is rich in examples of being out of touch and struggling with allyship 101s.
The problem is, the language that I used was inclusionary, and the language that she used was exclusionary, which is the reason why I was critical. My message
exclusionary in what way?
So she literally says, do not talk to me about police, white people, until you've done X. I can't imagine.
She said, please don't speak to me about police in the context of what the guy said. She was speaking directly to somebody. She had quote-tweeted somebody. So the please don't speak to me about police is specific to that tweet. But the first sentence, why white leftists more eager to unify with racialized communities than organize your own people first. Second sentence, unity with black people is meaningless as long as the masses of white people are indoctrinated into white supremacy and liberalism. Now, in the original stream, you had taken issue with the phrase, your own people. Do you still have issue with that phrase?
Yeah. Why are we racializing this?
Because you can't ignore race in America of all places.
No, if you have a problem with a take, you don't need to say, why are these white people giving a bad take? You don't need to say, white people aren't doing enough. If you have an issue with a take...
pointing out a general trend in the organization patterns of...
Right, that's essentializing.
Lack of organizing patterns. It's not essentializing. So
then why did black people overwhelmingly vote for Biden instead of Bernie? Maybe you guys need to do more radicalization within your own community first? How much is X or Y doing? Like, why aren't white people doing enough? Why not use positive language that includes people? White people have a power that black people don't.
Because you don't need to coddle people.
Oh, see, now we're getting to it. Using inclusionary language is coddling. Anti-revolutionary rhetoric. This is counter-revolutionary from No Name. The original tweet is saying, hey, workers of America, we need to rise up together and recognize that petty racial infighting is not the way to solve our problems. We need to work together against the collective institutions that oppress us.
You have a weird way of perceiving these sort of things, but let me scale back a bit.
If you were a random white kid and you saw this tweet, like, you realize...
We're not talking about random white kids, Vaush.
Random white kids are future revolutionaries. White Boy Summer is a revolutionary's haven, okay? We need those random white kids. And they see a tweet like this, and what do they think? How can you recruit new people if you don't care what normies think about our movement? How can we recruit new people if we don't care about what randoms think about our messaging? We need to know. We need to be appealing to them as much as possible. We should be having bake sales to get these fuckers in our doors. There are people who are going to say that I'm tone policing, but that it's okay to tone police massive public figures when they're giving political messaging. That's an okay time to tone police, actually. Optics is very important when it comes to bringing over new people. I don't think we're ever going to agree on that. And even if they never fully unlearn it and they're still like a little bit racist, what would you rather have? A slightly racist white kid who wants a proletarian revolution, or a slightly racist white kid with a Back the Blue sticker on the back of his fucking Ford Focus, you know? I know that I would rather have them on the left. And maybe they're irritating and other black people on the online left don't want to be around them. That's cool. They don't have to. It's not a social club. They can stay in some other portion of the left where people are more tolerant of that type of behavior. You know?
And who do you think is going to create that path? Who do you think should create that path? Who do you think should be putting in that difficult work to build that path?
Well, I do it better than pretty much anyone else, I think. So I'd say me. Yeah, I think other white people can use their privilege to try to access those communities.
Which is No Name's point.
No Name was basically telling white people to sweep their own porch before coming to pick apart black people's advocacy. Being that white Americans have yet to tangibly reckon with their whiteness. They still at large are struggling to push anti-racist efforts within their own spaces. It took an entire hour for Ian to finally understand the No Name tweet, only to gaslight his way out of reflecting, purposely refusing to understand since his whole argument he relied on would crumble, placing more importance in personally feeling right than truly understanding what Andrewism and No Name are conveying. The idea that black people have the tone police our intersectional leftist spaces, for some likely still racist white boys to feel welcome is quite literally counterproductive. The only people that need to be doing bake sales and going door to door are other white people. The Black Panther Party and MLK were largely unpopular, yet they made so much progress. Progress that was made without the majority of white Americans and normies. Moving forward, we should stop engaging and going back and forth with bigots that dig their heels in. That time could be better spent uplifting and helping build intersectional leftist creators, especially Cornbread Tube. Watch more women of color, queer, and trans content creators. Together we can encourage a healthy space welcoming more diverse voices, where tone policing isn't the norm, nuance encouraged, and our lived experience aren't dismissed. Let's together walk into this new leftist era where truly intersectionality is the norm. With that said, I wish you endurance as we push through more anti-trans and CRT bills. Special thanks to Kayleen, my interview Rosalind, and Aaron Knock for making my thumbnail. If you want to help me create more black trans focused content, you're able to support me on 2 other platforms. I have Patreon, where you can see exclusive content and behind the scenes clips. You also can support me on Ko-fi, where you can find my art prints and original paintings that I sell locally.